Alright, on Film Graze today, the first film we're going to graze on is one of the more significant releases of the summer, Ari Aster's MIDSOMMAR, his second feature.
Yeah, after Hereditary, which was last year, which was more of a conventional horror visually.
Still pretty batshit
tropes. Yeah, this is a completely different sort of situation, really, isn't it? Should we start with the plot?
Okay, so it concerns a group of students. In the opening scene, the protagonist, Danny, played by Florence Pugh, loses her parents and sister in a very traumatic way.
Yeah, it's a really horrible sequence.
Very upsetting. Seemingly what this guy trades off in his big stock. Anyway, she's really grief-stricken. Her shitty boyfriend, who is an anthropology student, a PhD student, although without a thesis, and his mates are going on like a lads trip to Sweden.
Yeah, I can't remember the name of this.
It's called Håga, I believe.
Right.
Because one of their friends, who's called Pulle, is a Swedish dude, and he's like, yeah, it'll be great, we can all go. And
yeah, come and meet my family.
Yeah,
You'll
exactly.
love them. They will certainly love you.
And another of their friends, I can't remember his name, Patrick, is that his name? He's writing a PhD on midsummer traditions in the Norse lands.
Yeah, why not?
Why? I mean, it's interesting, interesting topic. Anyway, Christian, which is Danny's boyfriend, doesn't tell her, and then she finds out like 2 weeks before they go, and it's all really awkward, but because he feels bad for her, even though his mates are all just like openly like, or at least the character played by Will Poulter, one of the least likeable gates in British acting, I feel, whenever I see this guy just playing a prick.
Yeah.
They all just hate on her, but then he feels awkward about it. So
Yeah, he's like, maybe considering your family have just died in this horrific murder-suicide.
probably shouldn't leave you behind in the summertime.
You can come on this anthropology field trip.
Yeah.
And it's quite a long film, isn't it?
2.5 hours.
How long is it before?
What, before anything, like...
No, just before all this like sort of tension building at the beginning.
Probably, yeah.
It's a fair chunk.
Takes place in America.
Yeah.
Yeah. The pacing was just on point, I feel.
Yeah, certainly. It is building up the tension throughout this period. It's not just like fallow time before action happens or something. So then they all end up going on a trip together to this remote place where the days are really long.
Yeah. 20 plus hours of sunlight or whatever.
So it's a horror set in the daylight. As opposed to Hereditary, and most of Hereditary scares come in the conventional shadowy remit, things creeping around in the corner of a room that you can't quite see.
There is still a lot of visually dark sequences in this film that take place like indoors and stuff like that,
For sure, in the sort of communal hall that they all stay in. Yeah.
Okay, so they're introduced to this community. They all seem really nice. They've all got these nice white robes on, and,
I don't know, what it devolves into a pretty conventional folk horror, which deploys sort of ritual sequences, a passage through time, and like things happening over this period. It's 9 days, this sort of ritual that they're then part of. And yeah, I guess it gets pretty fucked up, doesn't it?
Yeah, it certainly does. In ways that I just enjoyed without reservation, really, I feel.
Yeah, not for the squeamish.
No. I was likening the violence to like Hot Fuzz or something like that. It's not very typical horror screen violence, It's not very typical anything, like not very typical mise en scène, not very typical music, acting. Well, I guess the acting style is probably quite...
I'd say it is. The film is quite typical, really.
You'd say so?
Yeah, definitely. In the way it's trading off, not just classic folk horrors like The Wicker Man, in terms of its imagery, its pacing, the trajectory of the characters through the story towards it.
Resolution.
Some sort of
horror movie resolution.
Denouement, yeah. It's also, it's bad to say aping, but films like Ben Wheatley's Kill List, I mean, it's a folk horror, it's a kitchen sink drama that turns into folk horror.
Right.
Where, which is structurally very similar to what happens in this film. There's another film called The Ritual that came out a couple of years ago.
I have not seen that one.
Yeah,
I'm a big fan of Kill
it's
List.
sort of trashier than Kill List, which I would highly recommend. The Ritual, again, is like a group of friends. One of their friends is planning this big hiking trip through somewhere in Scandinavia, and he dies, and then they decide to go to like honour his memory. So they're supplanted into, you know, this pagan otherscape, you know. It's just a similar sort of vibe, basically. I guess what's interesting about this maybe is that it does have this sort of eye on anthropology. But in terms of it trying to represent an actual ritual, as well as like making it very clear that like that's what it's interested in, i.e. midsummer rituals, because the characters are interested in it as an academic phenomenon.
And supposedly a lot of the film and the events in the film are somewhat grounded in real traditions and real rituals. Some of them.
Yeah, I guess so. I don't know. I guess it's a sort of amalgamation of different practices.
Yeah. Yeah, right, okay. Well, there are maypoles, which I guess is very traditional sort of thing you'd expect. There are also...
Yeah, they are conventional typologically.
What do you call the bear thing?
I don't know, like sort of pageantry and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah.
Roles that are assigned during rituals.
I'm talking about the, like, immolation, pyre shit or whatever. Presumably that is also...
Yeah, for sure, but like an effigy
forms
the same.
Yeah.
And it's not an effigy, spoiler alert. But one thing I thought was interesting, actually, is that it has this really close eye on ritual and grounds itself in these ritual traditions that are actually like alienating for us as viewers and scary scenarios, you know. But most of the overt horror comes from going outside of that ritual framework, which already has like scary shit inside of it, and characters just being murdered outside of a ritual context.
Right.
And I thought this was quite interesting because it frames itself around all this sort of ritual theory and anthropological tradition, but I guess the scary stuff is when characters get like drawn out of the crowd and
break the rules
and then bludgeoned. Yeah,
that's a really good point, actually. I hadn't thought about it. The rituals are all performed with people with smiles on their faces. They've been waiting 9 years to...
And they are bloody rituals, but it's all like very performative and cathartic or whatever for these people.
Yeah.
But I guess the true horror actually lies out.
I just love the anthropology PhD students who just can't handle it, you know.
Yeah, the representation of academia is pretty hilarious.
Yeah, there's a subplot involving one character stealing another character's thesis, which is just outrageous. And
if you're doing an it just doesn't make sense. Like, if you're trying to do an anthropology PhD, it would be like
you'd have to have a proposal
literally.
For
it can be literally anything in the world. Why would it be? And yeah, as you said, you need to. It's way more formal than they seem to.
They seem quite deep into their programs already, and he's like, "Oh, I don't have a thesis yet."
Yeah. Now that we're here, maybe I'll cat the swag. Yeah.
But you know, the mediocrity of these like American people is again super. Not these American males, let's say, the victims or whatever, or the characters that at least when you start watching the film, you're like, "Oh, I hope these are going to be the victims." At least I was.
Yeah, of course. Well, they're very like jocular and
yeah, they're just nasty and they just suck. You know, I feel
especially because Florence Pugh's character is situated very clearly as a protagonist.
Yeah, great performance, I got to say.
Yeah, definitely. She really carries.
Yeah, you're with her quite a lot.
Yeah, the camera really follows her a lot.
Yeah, there's a lot of non-verbal acting, you know, which
very
I
much
really appreciate. She does a really great job. But yeah, I mean, these other guys just suck, really. You know, her boyfriend maybe worst of all.
Yeah, Ari Aster has made quite a point of framing this film not just as a horror, but also as a breakup film. And that's very clear throughout in terms of representing psychological trauma.
A lot of the drama of the film is about her and his relationship. And from the very start, he's made out to be someone that she should definitely break up with, to be honest.
Yeah.
That's an interesting thing because like the sort of personal auteur qualities of Ari Aster's brief thus far filmography are very experiential. A lot of it is about anxiety and grief and these kind of things. So. Hereditary is...
Especially in the context of family and relationships.
Yeah, absolutely. A big theme in both films. Hereditary is pretty different, I'd say, both in terms of what kind of story it's telling and also from a style perspective, really. I mean, there are a couple of like really crazy shots in this film, like when the camera like flips 360 degrees when the car is driving to the village or whatever.
Yeah, it's a really visually stunning film. The sort of iconography, all the sets are crazy, the landscape is crazy.
The representation of Trippin is second to none, I would say.
Yeah,
Very cool. I love that one flower on her head that just kept going, you know. That's...
To cite another Ben Wheatley film, A Field in England, I feel also has a similar vibe in how it represents these sorts of experiences.
True
And
say.
I'm sure there are lots of
that's...
Or more A Field in England than like fucking Enter the Void or something.
Well, yeah, for sure.
And I guess how you'd represent natural
the third person Trippin. There's also a sequence in a forthcoming big summer film that has a good like third person Trippin sequence where you're just watching someone. But this you're there, and the CGI is doing a lot to replicate. And yeah, really cool. I love the camera work in this film. That was one of my favorite things about it. And as I say, I found it really different to Hereditary, which I found stylistically pretty irritating and also just bewildering.
I think that's unfair, man. I think they both I feel like they're comparable. They're obviously very contrasting, but I feel like they both have moments where they frame things in a really interesting way. There's a moment at the end of Hereditary where you get a sort of, I guess, like a privileged perspective on what's happening.
Yeah.
Using some really jokes camera work.
Get some levitation.
And it's sort of a miniaturization sort of thing.
Well, if I remember correctly, the start of Hereditary had that like doll's house, right, where it kind of prefigured the whole film with it all in like miniature. And this film has something quite similar with the illustrations and a lot of the wall paintings and stuff that foretell a lot of what's going on in Midsommar. But the crucial difference, I think, with the camera styles of Hereditary and Midsommar is experiential. Again, as I say, like in this is pretty, apart from like certain like tableaus and like big set pieces, the camera is walking around pretty much constantly. If it's not handheld, if I don't know what techniques they're actually using, I haven't seen much like production footage or whatever.
It must be handheld. Well, I think a lot of it must be because it's so tactile
and it's beautiful. Like I think it's so cool. Especially for a mainstream blockbuster film where like most of the camera is moving. And like 10 years ago, you would never have had a film like this. You know, he's clearly influenced by directors who like not use show-offy long takes necessarily, but don't rely on editing to put together the whole film. I feel like there must have been a lot of rehearsal in this film and a lot of like arrangement of how the camera was going to work around. Whereas I think Hereditary is a bit more traditional horror movie in terms of the reliance on editing.
You said it yourself, the form of the story influences how it's being filmed. Mm-hmm. And in Hereditary, especially after the sort of big action flashpoint, like
Hereditary.
Then the characters are in like stasis, right?
Yeah, okay, yeah.
So the camera, I think, interacts with that. Another thing,
nice.
What you were saying about the camera being very dynamic, the camera work in the filmmaker that we hopefully will be discussing soon, Laszlo Nemes, in Sunset and in Son of Saul.
Very similar technique.
Extremely dynamic. It gives a real sense of subjectivity rather than objectivity when you're watching. I guess that's the point in Midsommar, because you're sort of meant to feel like you're stumbling through the field with them.
That's, couldn't have said it better in so few words, or in many more.
And it's great.
It is great. I didn't really like Hereditary. I'm going to watch it again, but I just, as I say, I found it kind of bewildering. I found it hard to find it scary because I didn't really know what was going on. Or no, I didn't really know what was going on, but I couldn't be bothered to work out what was going on. But I thought it had really good acting in it. You liked it. I'm going to watch it again. Yeah.
I feel like I mainly remember images from it. There's a sort of witchy subplot that I can't really remember that well.
Yeah.
Anyway, Ari Aster, doing well.
He also seems like a really nice guy. I listened to the film comment screen talk he did.
Yeah, it's really good.
Very, very sincere person, you know. He's not up himself, and he really is doing. I think he's doing this shit for the right reasons. I think he's really making empathetic films that are clearly appealing to a lot of people. I mean, both of these films have been mad successful. Yeah,
big marketing.
Yeah, A24, of course.
Yeah,
name of the game. But sometimes they promote films that look really cool.
Yeah.
Midsommar was fantastic. I thought I really appreciated it.
Yeah, back it. See it when you can.